Montessori iPad Initiative. Enlightening the use of technology in the classroom. To give context to my mock proposal, I'd like to mention that my familiarity with Montessori education comes from my son's enrollment in a local institution. This is the school with which I have based my assumptions. Currently, his school does not incorporate technology in the school. However, students are allowed to explore computers for projects and using software for submitting assignments from home. While I support the methods of the school and applaud their abilities to educate my son in the most amazing ways, I am discouraged by their lack of technology incorporation. My son is 4 years old and already has a fascination with engineering, programming, and robots. I would like to help keep him at the school up until 8th grade. However, I feel as if doing so in an environment lacking in technological support would possibly hinder the development of his interest. I do not know whether it is the lack of funding or a fear of including a flattened form of engagement into the learning environment, but in my opinion, modern Montessori schools should begin to consider technology implications in their classrooms. The following is an example of how a Montessori school might engage in the process of considering technological devices and hardware, training teachers for implementation, evaluating content for appropriate age-level learning, managing distribution for the devices, and establishing safety measures. We begin our Montessori iPad initiative, technology in a Montessori institution example. The local Montessori school has been granted funds to purchase Apple iPad Pros and supporting hardware for the school. I have been hired as a technology specialist to help facilitate the incorporation of this new technology into the school. A technology advisory committee was established to address questions and concerns. This group includes the head of the school, 2 teachers, 1 from each age group, and several parents who have volunteered to participate. This committee has been charged with outlining a plan to distribute and implement the use of the iPads. The first things we needed to consider were the telecommunications and networking we would need to integrate into the school system. Currently, we are operating with a 10 megabytes per second connection. We would need to update that to a faster solution so the network can handle all the iPads having seamless access to the internet. Options from our local provider range from 100 megabytes per second to 10 gigabytes per second. Our strategy for upgrading would start at the lowest and most cost-effective rate, with the option to increase if our needs demand it. Ideally, the setup will include routers in each classroom that will connect to a hub station and server station. To help with the added cost of upgrading the system, we will be submitting an application for a special E-rate available through the local internet provider for educational institutions. There are no additional fees for modem, wireless router, installation, and 24/7 support, since that is already included in their services. Before integration can even occur, professional development will need to take place for the teachers and teacher helpers. This would include the physicality of the devices in the classrooms and the use of the agreed-upon applications. In addition to learning how to use the iPads, topics of learning will also cover maintaining security and safety and how to approach creative uses brought up by the students themselves. Instruction for introducing the iPads as a lesson to the students will be the main focus of the training. Training will initially occur over summer break and continue once a month thereafter for the first year. Yearly training sessions will take place after that. Ongoing dialogue with students and parents will help navigate the direction of the program. Technology has not always been considered a viable learning resource in the Montessori classroom, as it tends to go against the Montessori vision of hands-on learning. However, methods for learning include the incorporation of practical life lessons, and today's modern Montessori school can no longer ignore the significance of technology in current society. Digital devices themselves have characteristics which invite new assumptions about learning and working with information. Based on this new idea of technology and using the research conducted, specific applications for the iPad usage were agreed upon. Listed below are some goals and educational characteristics that the committee agreed upon for iPad applications that are in line with the Montessori principles of learning. The materials should be aesthetically pleasing and beautiful to the senses, as well as wholesome, peaceful, and non-violent. The content of the computer program must be meaningful and useful to the child. That is age appropriate. The way of interacting with the program should also be age appropriate in terms of promoting and not frustrating the fine or gross motor movement. It should be more process focused, promoting exploration and learning, rather than product focused, emphasizing achievement or the failure to achieve a specific outcome. It must contain good control of error. That is, the materials must have built-in flexibility that allows the child to be self-directing, self-pacing, and self-correcting. Related to this is the ability of the material to promote independent exploration by the child, after initial instruction and orientation with the teacher. The materials should have multiple levels of difficulty built into it, and it should promote the child's creativity rather than providing exhaustive information and stimuli that leaves little room for the child's own imagination and ideas. It should emphasize internal motivations rather than promoting a heavy dependence on external reinforcement, such as overplaying positive and negative feedback with bells, whistles, points, and grand prizes. And the materials should enhance or complement the teaching that is going on elsewhere in the classroom. It should be well integrated within the learning environment rather than competing with other instructional processes and materials in the classroom. It was agreed upon, above all, that there should be balanced and meaningful work. Applications to consider will be brought to the attention of the committee and voted on for integration. Applications for consideration include ones such as those developed by Square Panda and Osmo. Each of these companies have developed apps based on educational methods and provide learning guides for parents and instructors. Google applications are quality options for the older classrooms as they promote the use of the tablets for practical purposes. Video creation and editing are also viable options for this age group. The committee has already begun developing curriculum to incorporate the new technology by using examples of how other Montessori schools have integrated tablets. Here's a video showing how students can use a voice recording app to help with their emerging reading skills.
Do you remember being a kid? There was times that you wanted something so bad, but no matter how hard you tried, you just couldn't get it. Well, sometimes learning to read can be a lot like grabbing that football.
So we use the iPad and iPod Touch to help us read better.
Oh, you didn't think 6-year-olds could use the iOS devices in school?
Think again.
We call our process the 3 R's. Here's the first step, reread.
Watch as these kids practice their reading.
Rereading will help them read smoothly. Our teacher calls this fluency.
Now, here's step 2, record. We open the Voice Memos app and record ourselves reading the book as fluently as we can.
There's a little microphone right here. Help us record.
We try to make our reading sound just like we were talking. It's time for step 3, reflect.
We listen and think about the recording. Listening helps us know how we sound when we read. Then we give ourselves a score for phrasing and expression. And if it's really good, our teacher might make this a podcast for the world to listen to. I can't wait to practice again. 3 R's. We read, record, and reflect. Technology in school has come a long way, baby. Oh yeah! And remember when you wanted something really bad and just couldn't get it? Well, Sometimes you just have to do one thing new. And that can make all the difference.
Along with determining the use of the iPads, we also needed to figure out how many we need to purchase and how they would be distributed. The school has 4 classrooms, 2 for early childhood, 1 for elementary, and 1 for the juniors. The equivalent grades range from pre-K through 8th grade. Each classroom has a primary teacher and a teacher helper. It was decided that each early childhood class would get 3 iPads, the elementary class would get 10, the junior class would get 10, and each of the primary teachers would get 1 of their own. I'd like to know that this is not a one-to-one case, and that it is ideal considering the primary purpose of the iPads is for exploration and for enhancing the educational materials presented by the teacher. It is not for replacing it. It's encouraged that the students work collaboratively in groups or use the iPads individually as needed for their own work. Plans were made for how these will be handled in each class category. The 3 iPads for early childhood class would be encased in 3 different colors. Each one would have different applications depending on the level of the learner. This means that if a child chooses the iPad for their work, they will start at the basic level and move up as their learning progresses. Limiting the applications available on the iPads will encourage exploration without frustration and initiate motivation to progress. iPads will be stored in each classroom and plugged into a charger when not in use. If a learner chooses to use one, they must unplug the device, take it to a table, and the very first thing they do is set the timer. Then they are free to explore the iPad in whatever way they like. When the timer ends, the learner must take the iPad back to the charger. A sense of ownership is created when they must take care of the device themselves, and the timer enlists the skill of mindfulness of the amount of screen time they include in their school time. It's important to note that the early childhood class is not using the device to teach them. Yes, there will be educational apps available, and each device is equipped with the appropriate age level applications, but these children are using the iPad as a means of discovery. They will be developing problem-solving skills, hand-eye coordination, and fine motor skills. The older kids will have more freedom for using the iPad for learning purposes. However, students will again assume responsibility for keeping them charged and in the same location within each classroom. When a student chooses to use an iPad for either research or a creative endeavor, they will check out a device with the indication that they will check in the iPad again when finished using it. These students will have access to an LMS, such as Schoology, to keep track of their usage. Usernames and passwords are going to be used in this age group to not only increase security, but also encourage digital literacy and citizenship. The teachers will also utilize the iPads for managing the LMS for their classrooms, making notes on student progress, and email correspondence. Their own level of exploration is encouraged, too. If the teachers are excited about using the devices, then the students will be too. Upkeep, maintenance, and technical support will be provided by the technology specialist. Once a month, a review of the iPads will take place to ensure the devices are up to date, working properly, and without too much wear and tear. Where there is evidence that the devices are not being cared for, those classrooms will be given additional instruction in handling the iPads. Knowing which devices were checked out by which students will aid the teachers in coaching ownership. We plan to recruit the services of the local internet provider to establish our communications, access, and support for connectivity and internet security. Through using a provider, we will gain fast, reliable, and secure internet access. Other benefits include a static IP address, cloud storage, and 24/7 support for internet and hardware services. Shields will be in place to prevent malicious malware and viruses from leaking through. With the realization that while exploration is encouraged, this is still a school environment and we are charged with the safety of the students. This includes banning content that is violent or too mature in nature. URL filters will be used on every device without the students having a way to disable them. This will ensure students are only accessing materials which are appropriate for the classroom. Our timeline for implementation will begin with the installation or the networking hardware. Once that is operating seamlessly, we will move on to the teacher training. iPads will be introduced one room at a time once classes have been in session for 2 months. This ensures the students are acquainted with the classroom rules and policies first. New activities are added and subtracted all the time in Montessori rooms, so this gradual rollout is complementary to those principles. The ultimate goal for the Montessori iPad initiative would be to strategically introduce technology into each classroom while maintaining the methods and philosophy of the principles established by Dr. Maria Montessori. Her life choices, as much as her own words, portray a revolutionary thinker who not only challenged the social conventions of her day, but who embraced innovation and understood the importance of technological progress in the evolution of humankind. As an avid consumer of technology in her own time, I would like to think she would approve of our plan to include such societal advancements into the education of the current generation of children. To quote Mark Powell, "If Maria were alive today, I've got to believe that, like the scientist she was, she would not be resting on assumptions, but would instead be using her iPad to explore many of the new ways that digital information technology can motivate children to be creative, communicative, collaborative, and curious."